people out there, they might not say it to our face, but, politely, their impression or their idea is that poor people, poor guys, poor girls, they're really wasting their life, right? But our attitude is, fortunate souls, fortunate souls, we're really making the best use of our human form of life. And who's right? That was the theme of that would be the theme of that brochure, that little booklet, Who's Crazy? So we're right. We're right. And, of course, that's what our books tell us and our acharyas tell us and our, all our leaders tell us. And I'm going to support that with a little bit of empiric evidence, which I'm not going to belabor the point because I know I've mentioned these things before, but I kind of fine-tuned it, and I've picked out two of what I consider the best cases of empiric evidence to support the idea that consciousness survives death and that the brain is separate from the body. The mind, is separate from the body. And so this one case is a case of a near-death experience, and the lady's name was Pam Reynolds. She had an aneurysm. It's like kind of like a tumor type of thing in her brain. And they told her that, there's very little chance that you're going to survive from that. So she didn't want to die. She didn't want to give up without a fight. So she, got on the internet and did her research, and she found that there was some doctor in Texas, I forget his name, who performed an operation called standstill, where they put the person out, like in a state of just about clinically dead, basically. They bring the temperature of the person's body down to like 60 degrees, and the heart stops. There's practically no brain waves. Basically, for all practical purposes, the person's dead. That's what they have to do to perform that operation. So they did it on her, and to remove the aneurysm, and it was successful. Okay, but the idea is that because of the state that they had to put her in to perform the operation, according to medical science, there's absolutely no way that she should have experienced anything, right? Because you don't experience anything when your brain's not working, your brain's not functioning. No, flat lines it's called, no brain waves. But so what happened was, though, she claims that, I'll just read it to you. Pam reported floating above her body and watching the surgical team work on her. She described the surgical tools, the bone saw, and the other equipment used during the procedure. Pam reported hearing the surgeons and nurses talking, including specific comments made during the operation. And these were all verified. They're correct. It's accurate. She described feeling a sense of peace and joy as she moved through a tunnel towards a bright light. Now, if I would have read that one first, you might just go, so what? That's just like some sort of a hallucination or a dream. But the fact that how could she know the instruments? It's not anything she ever saw before. There were surgical instruments she had no knowledge of. She described them accurately. She's describing accurately what the medical people were saying during the procedure, during the operation, which gives credibility to this, her statement of that she's describing a sense of peace and joy as she moved through a tunnel towards a bright light. Pam reported meeting her deceased grandmother and other relatives during her NDE. So, she was experiencing something beyond the body. I'm not saying she was experiencing like her pure spiritual identity, but certainly something beyond the gross body, And then here's a really amazing case for, and this happened here in America, for reincarnation. There was this boy, his name was James Loniger, okay? And I'll read it to you again. It says, at a young age, James would have nightmares about a plane crashing and would shout phrases like, airplane caught on fire, little man can't get out. That was happening repeatedly from the time he was about 2 years old. The parents would wake up, and the kid would be in his, not crib, but, little bed, and he'd be kicking kicking and going, airplane caught on fire, little man can't get out, airplane caught on, and parents would they just stand there, didn't know what to do, and it was repeating, it's just like every other night or every night kind of thing, okay? So then that went on. Finally, he got a little older. His father took him to a museum, and in this museum there was an airplane, a World War II airplane, and the kid became like transfixed. He wanted to. His father wanted to take him to different places in the museum. He just wanted to stand there and look at that plane. And he had his father keep him there for like 2 or 3 hours. He's looking at the plane, and then he gives details. James demonstrated an impressive understanding of World War II aircraft, which was unusual for a child of his age. Yeah, he was describing to his father, different parts of the airplane, and his father looked at something and said, "What?" He said, "That's a bomb chute, Dad. That's where the bombs drop out of." So he knew things, and his father did some research and found, that's all correct. It says here, James' parents documented his claims, and researchers verified many details about his supposed past life as a pilot, including the type of plane he flew, Corsair. He knew the name of the plane, Corsair. And the aircraft carrier he was stationed on, it was called Natoma Bay. And when he said that to his father, because his father asked him, he's claiming, actually his father bought a book that he was going to give to his father, and it was about World War II. And so his father had it out, and James just, is in it. Coincidentally, he just jumped on his lap and said, "What do you got there, Daddy?" And he's flipping through the pages, and his father was flipping through the pages. He says, "Oh," he says, "that's where I died, Daddy. That's where my plane got shot down." Iwo Jima. He just happened to turn to a page of Iwo Jima, and his father said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, Daddy, I was flying in a plane. My plane got shot down there." He said, "Who shot down your plane?" He said, "The Japanese." And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "What was the name of the boat you flew off?" He said, "Natoma Bay." And his father was like, "That sounds like a Japanese name. That doesn't sound like an American name." But his father did the research, and there was an aircraft carrier, Natoma Bay, on that mission. And he said, I can't remember how the conversation went, but he said, "Was anybody else there?" He said, "Yeah, Jack Larson." He knew the name of the guy who was flying in the plane next to him, Jack Larson, and that they were able to verify that later on. His father was born again Christian, so his father got into this because he wanted to prove that his son was wrong. And the more research he did, he kept coming up with stuff that, wait a second, all the stuff he's saying is bearing out. He actually went to a reunion, pretending to want to write a book about the Natoma Bay, but he was going to do the research. Anyway, he met Jack Larson. He met the guy, Jack Larson, and he confirmed that, there was only one person shot down. What was his name? James. I can't remember his name. James Houston. One pilot was shot down in that operation, James Houston. And the boy, James, he used to sign he used to make drawings. He was repeatedly making drawings showing, the scene of the battle with the, ack, or the ammunition that was being fired out of the airplane. And he would always sign it James III. James III. And his parents would ask him, "Who's James III?" And he'd say, "That's me, Daddy. I'm James. I'm the third James." And they couldn't understand. But then his name was James Leininger. As the previous pilot, he was James Houston, and his father's name was also James, so he was the third James, right? Anyway, he met Jack Larson, and they just hit it off like they were old friends and like that. And if that's not reincarnation, how do you explain all that? And there's so many cases like that. These reincarnation cases, there's maybe like 3,000 good ones, okay? But in about the near-death out-of-body experiences, hundreds of thousands of people have had those type of experiences. They say actually 1 in every 20 people that has cardiac arrest undergoes some sort of a experience like that. So, there's really good, as far as I'm concerned, good quality empiric evidence. And as far as not just religious fanatics or people who are just kind of on the fringe, the people who do this and who are doing this research, these guys are as straight as a pin. If you just go on their website, they're scientists. They're not, they have no agenda to try to get people into something spiritual or, countercult. No, they're just scientists. And they come to the conclusion, that the best explanation for this phenomenon is that Consciousness is separate from the body. The mind is separate from the brain, like that, okay? So that's there. So, yeah, we're doing something very intelligent with our life. We're pursuing a worldview, a consciousness-based worldview. We're not buying into this matter-based worldview that the ultimate basis of reality is matter, just some point that exploded and expanded and and here we are. Too many. It's like if you want to say something's unbelievable, to me that's totally unbelievable. That's way more unbelievable than to think that there's some sort of an intelligent, conscious being behind the whole thing. That seems way more reasonable and kind of believable to me. Anyway, so we're not wasting our time. We're making the best use of our time, and we're very fortunate. And we should. And I'm going to enter into the advice part of the class. Okay, this is advice for maybe all of us, but certainly people who are newer, devotees who are newer. And I'm going to read something from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and then present the advice. Oh, yes, sorry, wrong place. Okay, so this is from Madhya Lila. Actually, I neglected to find where it was. Make the note to where I got the reference from. But it was Madhya Lila, I think was chapter 11, maybe text 91, 191, I'm not sure. But in the purport, Prabhupada says, a devotee is always thinking of how better to serve Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how to broadcast his name, fame, qualities throughout the world. One who is Nityasiddha has no business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world according to his ability. Such people are already associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Maybe I'll read that again. One who is Nityasiddha has no other business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world according to his ability. Such people are already associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur says, Nityasiddha Kari Mani, one should not think that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present 500 years ago, only his associates were liberated. Rather, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, thank you, says that anyone is a Nityasiddha if he acts on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the glories of the holy name of the Lord. We should respect those devotees preaching the glories of the Lord as Nityasiddha and should not consider them conditioned. So that's pretty amazing, So basically what Prabhupada is saying, there might be devotees who are Nityasiddha devotees even within our, within our ranks, among us, like that, in the movement. So the advice thing is that, okay, so if you see somebody that's what they're doing, that they have no other business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world, and they're just doing that. Oh, actually, there's more here. It says, and then Prabhupada quotes the verse, Mam chayo vyabhachadena bhakti yogena sevate, sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who has transcended the material modes of nature is said to be on the Brahman platform. That is also the platform of Nityasiddha. The Nityasiddha not only stays on the Brahman platform, but also works on that platform. Simply by accepting the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nityasiddha, one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. So there's the benefit. See? So, if you can understand, if you see somebody, just like according to that verse of the Bhagavad Gita, that they're just engaged in, spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, and it's just constant, over a period of time, then according to this, they're Nityasiddha devotees, and by Prabhupada uses the word accepting the associates of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nityasiddha, one can very easily go back home, back to God. Of course, that's what we want. So what does it mean to accept? Accept means that you try to serve them. You try to serve them. You try to follow their instructions and try to serve them, try to assist them. And you get blessings like that. There's some sort of Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payachikeba. Narottam Das Thakur says, who's ever become liberated without getting the mercy
right, of a an advanced devotee like that. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one song, Krishna Krishna, how's it go? Tava Krishna. He says, Krishna is yours. Krishna is, Krishna, say tomorrow, Krishna Ditipar. Yeah, Tamara Sakataya. Yeah, he's basically going, Krishna is yours, you possess him, and I'm running after you. I'm running after you, chanting, please give me Krishna. Because he's making the point, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that the pure devotee can give Krishna. He can give Krishna. He's got the power of attorney, from his guru and from Lord Chaitanya. So, by serving these Nityasiddha devotees, a Nityasiddha devotee, one can be blessed with pure devotional service, right? So that's a pretty good reason to take this kind of seriously and try to do that, okay? And we should be, think very positively that it's possible. It's possible to achieve Krishna Prem, even in this lifetime. We, sometimes, not just devotees, people in general, you have what's called a defeatist mentality. There's some goal, but you're thinking like, I don't know, I can't. We should have the opposite. We should have a succeedist mentality rather than a defeatist. We should be optimistic. And I'm going to read you something from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is from Adi Lila, chapter 9, text 51. In the purport, Prabhupada says, while chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes fainted and remained unconscious for many hours. He prays in his Shashastika, Yugayatam Nameshena Chakshusha Pravashayatam, Sunyayatam Jagat Sarvam, Govinda Vidahename. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. This is the perfectional stage of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and eating the fruit of love of Godhead, as exhibited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should not artificially imitate this stage, but if one is serious and sincerely follows the regulative principles and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, the time will come when these symptoms will appear. Tears will fill his eyes. He will be unable to chant the Maha Mantras distinctly, and his heart will throb in ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that one should not imitate this, and this is Prabhupada speaking, but a devotee should long for the day to come when such symptoms of trance will automatically appear in his body. So that's Prabhupada's instruction. We're supposed to long for the day. We should desire it. Prabhupada's not saying, but that's Lord Chaitanya. Forget it. You guys don't have a hope for that. No. Long for the day. The instruction's there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur sort of elaborated upon this in a song he wrote called Kabe Habe Bole Se Dinamar. He goes, when, oh when will that day be mine? Offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. When in my heart will your mercy shine? When, oh when will that day be mine? And he goes on and, it's legit. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's not artificial. It's not sahaja. It's, Prabhupada's instruction. It's a predecessor Acharya is praying like that. He's also praying, let's see, I'll read some of these others. Thinking myself lower than a blade of grass, bearing forbearance into my heart, respecting all and freed from false pride. When will I taste the essence of the liquid nectar of the holy name? Neither wealth, nor followers, nor beautiful women described in worldly poetry. None of these bodily pleasures do I covet. O Lord Gohari, please give me the causeless devotion to your lotus feet, birth after birth. When, as I chant the divine name of Sri Krishna, will my body thrill with ecstasy and my words choke up? When will pallor and trembling occur? And when will my eyes pour forth endless streams of tears? When will I run about the Ganges bank in Navadvip, guilelessly calling out, Gaur Nityananda, dancing and singing like a madman, giving up all mundane considerations?
When will Lord Nityananda show me mercy and release me from the illusion of materialism? When will he give me the shade of his lotus feet and let me enter the marketplace of the holy name? I shall buy or steal the mellows of the holy name of Hari, and after becoming intoxicated with those mellows, I shall become stunned. By touching the lotus feet of the great souls who relish those mellows, I shall constantly drown in the sweet nectar of the name. When will compassion for all fallen souls awaken within this Bhakti Vinod? And when will he thus forget his own happiness, and with a meek heart set out to propagate by humble entreaty the sacred order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So that's a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So, supposed to follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas. He's one of our Acharyas, and the instructions there from Srila Prabhupada. So, it's not artificial, it's not being a sahaja. And, he does mention, it's not like he's talking about this in exclusion of preaching. No, the very last one was, one with the compassion for all the fallen souls awaken within this Bhakti Vinod. And within his vision, he's not forgetting about the preaching. He's not forgetting about the mission. No, but it's part and parcel. He sees that as part of the whole package. He's praying that when we forget his own happiness and with a meek heart set out to propagate by humble entreaty the sacred order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, someone might ask, well, wait, isn't he contradicting himself? Because he's saying, he's praying that he wants to, when will the day be mine, offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing, when in my heart will your mercy shine, and he wants to experience the liquid nectar of the holy name. But here he's saying at the end of the song, when will he thus, referring to himself, forget his own happiness? So wait a second, you just in the first earlier part of the song, you're praying for your happiness, and here you're saying you forget your own. It's not. It's okay. In other words, I'm not an expert on the subject, but my analysis of that is that it's okay to desire, Krishna prema. It's not like, you're not. It's not. That's not considered a selfish desire or a material desire. It's okay to desire that because he's desiring that. He's the Acharya, and Prabhupada's saying we should long for the day. You see, so it's not a contradiction. It's okay to simultaneously desire to become elevated in devotional service, and it's consistent with the mission of going out with humble entreaty and to execute, to propagate and execute the sacred order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So. Does anybody have any question about just what I said so far? One problem I always have when I have to give a class is I never can tell when I prepare if I've got too much to say or not enough to say. So I expected this would go longer, but that's kind of all I really prepared to say. So does anybody have a question about what I said? Or like to make some, a reflection? Yeah, a poor.
Jai, thank you, Prabhu. It's always nice. Is it on? Is it on? Oh, there. Okay. It's always nice to hear comments about the different songs that the acharyas have presented because they're just expressing their different emotions, spiritual emotions, and it's very, very purifying and satisfying. So I have one thing, because you're talking about the scientists, how, they're real straight. So I have one called, this is about atheism. The religious belief that in the beginning there was nothing, and nothing happened to nothing until nothing exploded and created everything. Then the nothing that became everything magically rearranged itself out of inanimate matter for no reason whatsoever into complex, self-replicating, single-celled life forms that later changed into trees and people. Makes perfect sense. So that's a scientist.
Yeah. Okay, well, if nobody has a reflection or question, I'll share because there's a lot of time left, some things when I come across something, I listen to a lot of Prabhupada lectures, as my roommate does. Younger, constantly listening to something or other. And when I hear something that really catches me, I just try to remember a couple words, that's all you have to, and I go on Vanipedia, and I do a word search, and I find the lecture or the place where Prabhupada said that, and I copy and paste it and send it to myself as an email, so I, can remember it and use it in a class. So I'll just share with everybody a couple. This is a nice one. This is talking about something about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and how, we wonder, this was a lecture Prabhupada gave. It's an excerpt from a lecture Prabhupada gave about the past time when Lord Chaitanya was meeting with the Mayavadi sannyasis. And I think it was Bhakti Vikash Maharaj just was saying that it's much easier to get the animals to chant, right? It's just today than the Mayavadi sannyasis. So they're considered very offensive, So Lord Chaitanya met with them, and he converted them. He converted them. And as far as their offenses and everything, well, you can listen to this. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu excused all these offenders. Anyone who is godless, he is offender. So when they chanted Krishna, Krishna and accepted Vedanta philosophy according to the explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he excused them. That is the significance of Lord Chaitanya. He is very merciful. He excuses. Without excuse, how can he deliver the fallen souls of this age? And as I mentioned when I gave Bhagavatam class yesterday, the dictionary definition of magnanimous was generous and forgiving, and forgiving was underlined. So it's kind of consistent with what we're hearing here. How can he deliver the fallen souls of this age? Their condition is very precarious. Their duration of life is very small, and they are not very intelligent, very slow to understand the importance of spiritual life. And even they are a little advanced, they are under the clutches of so many so-called bogus societies. Therefore, their condition is very precarious. So there's no other alternative than to excuse them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu excused them. So it's not unrealistic to expect the mercy, of Lord Chaitanya. That's his business. His business is to show, compassion and forgive people who have previously been offenders, like he did Jagai and Madai, and give them a chance to experience spiritual life. Here's a good one. I sent this. This is an excerpt from a conversation, or maybe it might have been the tail end of a lecture, but I think it was a conversation, and I forwarded this one to Mahotsa, and he said this was the best ever. He liked this one. So Brahmananda goes, "We are simply your puppets, Srila Prabhupada. You are giving us the books." Prabhupada goes, "No, we are all set of puppets of Krishna. I am also puppet." Prabhupada chuckles. He says, "This is the cyclic succession. We have to become puppet, that's all. As I am puppet of my Guru Maharaj, if you become my puppet, then that is success. Our success is there when we become puppet of the predecessor. Tan deda chadana sevi bhakti sanivas," and he doesn't quote the rest, "janame janamane hoy eyavilas." To live in the society of devotees and to become puppet of the predecessor acharya. This is success. So we are trying to do that. Krishna conscious society and serve the predecessor. That's all. That's kind of nice. This is kind of an interesting one. Prabhupada, this is an excerpt from a lecture. Prabhupada says, "To understand Krishna is not so easy. So Shastra says that it can be made easy. It can be made easy. How? Sevan mukhi jivado swayameva spadatira. If you simply engage your tongue in the service of the Lord, this is one method. Simply engage your tongue in the service of the Lord, God will be revealed. God will reveal himself. You cannot see God. You cannot see Krishna. But when he reveals himself, just like at night, you cannot see the sun. But when the sun reveals himself, it is not by your effort. In due course of time, sun will arise in the morning. You can see the sun, you can see yourself, you can see the whole world. So try to reveal Krishna." Prabhupada goes, "Try to reveal Krishna. Don't try to see Krishna, because with your eyes, with your senses, these material blunt senses, we cannot see. That wasn't the one I thought I was going to read, but anyway, let's see. On another occasion, Prabhupada raises the question, so if we can't understand Krishna, why are we bothering? What are we doing? Why are we wasting our time? Prabhupada goes, so our knowledge is always imperfect. That we must admit. If foolishly we think we have acquired all sorts of knowledge, we have advanced in science, this is another foolishness. It is not possible. So when it is not possible to understand even the material things which we are daily seeing with our eyes and perception, what to speak of spiritual? And Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the supreme spiritual form, so it is not possible for us to understand Krishna by our limited senses. Then Prabhupada goes, then why are we bothering so much for Krishna consciousness if it is not possible? And he goes, the answer is, and he gives the same point, Atak Shri Krishna Nabadi Nabhaved Garam Indriya. The imperfect senses cannot realize Krishna as he is. Then the process is Sevan Mukha Hijivido. If you become submissive, if you develop the spirit of service to Krishna, either as servant or as friend or as parent or as lover, if you begin to give service to the Supreme Lord, and the beginning is chanting, he says, therefore it is said, Jivado means the tongue, beginning with the tongue. Your service begins by the tongue. By the tongue you can chant Hare Krishna, and by the tongue you can taste Krishna Prasadam. So the beginning process is very nice. You can chant Hare Krishna, and whatever little prasadam is offered to you by Krishna, by his kindness, you accept it. Then the result will be that Sevan Mukha Hijivido. If you become submissive, and if you begin this service, chanting and eating prasadam, then Swayameva Spadathyada. Simply by these two kinds of practices, Krishna will reveal himself before you. I am like this. You cannot understand Krishna by speculation. No, that is not possible, because your senses are imperfect. But if you begin this process of service, then it will be possible that one day Krishna will reveal to you, I am like this. So, over the years, I would repeatedly hear Prabhupada make this same point, in lectures, and so I decided once, this is about this is 30 years ago, I guess it was, I was staying at Sandy Ridge, and where the archives is, and I did a little project. I went through all I did a word search on Sevan Mukha Hijivido, and things that are kind of like that, and I went through all the database, and I found that there was literally, not hundreds, dozens and dozens of times where Prabhupada made this same point, starting way back in 1966 and going right through till the very end, 77, repeatedly, saying it kind of slightly different each time, little different words, but making the same point that, just two things. You say stuff like, take a vow. Take a vow that you won't allow your tongue to taste anything that's not offered to Krishna, and you won't allow yourself to speak anything. You use your tongue only in vibrating, Krishna Katha or service to Krishna. So just by those two things, Krishna will reveal himself to you. So, yeah, it's very simple, but obviously it's a very important point. Prabhupada made it repeatedly. So while I'm remembering, if anybody would like one of these, this is a new revised Six Goswami sheet. It's got a better picture on it, so if anybody would like one. But my request is that you don't have to, not an absolute promise, but if you take one, please promise that you'll try to chant the song every day. There's a song on the back by Srinivasacharya with the Sanskrit and the translation. And I was told by devotees that Prabhupada told Ridananda Maharaj that if you want to become like one of the six Goswamis, you should chant that song every day. And it's very powerful. It's written by Srinivasacharya, who was, I believe, a disciple, at least a Shiksha disciple of Jiva Goswami. He had, direct connection like that. And, I'll relate a pastime to you. Well, I don't know if it's still a pastime, but it's something I became aware of. Prabhupada himself chanted this song, and I want to describe, at least on one occasion to you, he gave, 1966, April 2nd, 1966, at that time Prabhupada had already moved down from the Upper West Side, where he was staying with Dr. Mishra and like that, and he moved down into the Bowery, and he was staying at what was called an AIR loft, Artist in Residence loft, that this fellow said he could, one of the people who was coming to his Bhagavad Gita classes said he could stay in. And So, he was holding class Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening, giving like a Bhagavad Gita class. So at least on this evening, the recording at least begins with Prabhupada chanting this song, right? And for like about 13 minutes, I timed it. When Prabhupada would chant, he'd get really absorbed in it. He wouldn't just chant each line once and move on. He's relishing the mellow. So he's repeating, he's chanting the same line again and again. So then I thought to myself, but then, and at the end, and the people who were there, I don't know who was there, maybe it was just 2 or 3 people, maybe it was 6 or 8, or who knows, but they were not chanting in response. It was just Prabhupada chanting, okay? And at the end, when Prabhupada finished chanting, he didn't explain it, like on other occasions later on when Prabhupada had disciples, if he introduced a new song, then he'd explain afterwards, but this song is a song by Narottam Das Thakur, blah, 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 No. He just went on to, so I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, so what's going on here? Prabhupada's chanting the song for 13 minutes, and they're not chanting in response, and he's not explaining it. So the only conclusion I could come to is Prabhupada's taking shelter of the 6 Goswamis. Prabhupada himself is, taking shelter of the predecessor acharyas. He's taking shelter of Srinivasacharya and the 6 Goswamis, right? And it's a solid program. The caption here is a verse from the Anchalila, chapter 1, texts 3 and 4 from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is praying, I pray to the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, Sri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath, so that all my impediments to writing this literature will be annihilated and my real desire will be fulfilled. And Narottam Das Thakur says the same thing in that song Nam Sankirtan, H.I. Goshai Kodi Chadana Vandan Jaha Hoite Bignana Shabishta Pradan. Same. So it's Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. I'm sure there's statements by Bhakti. I'm not aware of them. Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta. Right, of course. Take the same program, and Prabhupada himself was doing that. And Prabhupada makes the comment here in his purport. He says, if we adhere, read the purport. He says, if one wants to benefit the entire world, he will certainly find persons like hogs and pigs who will put forward many impediments. That is natural. But if a devotee seeks shelter of the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, the merciful Goswamis will certainly give the Lord's servitor all protection. So, it is, my godbrother Divyanga is evidence of that, because, I recently read this book, Oh Hare Krishna Airport, and, there was a lot of violence in that book. There's a lot of, at least certainly it's overtly and obviously, it was obvious in those days that there were people like hogs and pigs that were trying to put forward many impediments. But he mentioned to me this morning, I can't remember how we got onto the subject, but he said, he was partners with Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he said every day as we were driving out to the airport, we sang this song. So here he is, he's still alive and kicking, Yeah, so it works. We should sing. Okay, we could do that right there. I'll just finish reading the purport. It is not astonishing that impediments are placed before those who are spreading the Krishna conscious movement all over the world. Nevertheless, if we adhere to the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis and pray for their mercy, all impediments will be annihilated, and the transcendental devotional desire to serve the Supreme Lord will be fulfilled. So, on the suggestion of my godbrother, we'll sing it. I'm going to pass out the sheets, and please, if you think you want to have a go at, chanting the song every day, keep it, and this could be a good utilization of some remaining time. Could it be put up there? Oh, good, it's up there. So if you don't get one, you could read it up off of there, and we'll chant the prayers to the 6 Goswamis. Yeah, it's up there. That's the first verse. Krishna kirtana gana nartana pado premamritam bonigi. Dira dira jana priyakaro nirmatsaro pujito. Shri Chaitanya Kripabaro Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharavahantarako Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Saranyakaro Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajanan Nandena Mattaliko Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Shri Gauranga Gunana Varna Navido Shraddha Samriddhyandito Papo Tapani Krintano Tanubritam Govinda Ganamritai Anandam Buddhi Vardanaika Nipano Kaivalya Nistarako Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Jaktvato Namashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sadatu Chabad Bhutvadina Ganesha Ko Karunaya Gopina Kanta Shrito Gopi Bhavara Samritadi Lahari Kalola Magna Maho Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Kujat Kokila Hamsa Sarasagana Kirne Mayora Kule Nana Ratna Nibada Mula Vitapa Shri Yukta Vrindavane Radha Krishna Maharni Samprabhajato Jivarta Doyo Muda Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Sankhya Purvakanama Gana Natibi Kalavasani Krito Nidrahara Vihara Kari Vijito Katyantadina Chayo Radha Krishna Gunasmitir Madhuriman Nandena Sammohito Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Radha Kundata Kalindi Tanaya Tire Chabamsi Bate Premon Madhava Shara Shesha Dasaya Grasto Pramatto Sada Gayanto Chakadahare Gunavaram Baba Vibhuto Mura Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Hey Radhe Vraja Devi Ke Chalalite Hey Nanda Suno Kuta Shri Govardhana Kalpa Parapatale Kalindivane Kutaha Bhagavato Santa Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedar Mahabibalo Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Okay, so we could say the translation all together, and the first time we'll say the names of all the 6 Goswamis, but then after that we could just say, I offer my respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, who, and you don't have to say all the names, just I offer my respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and dancing. They are just like the ocean of love of God, and they are popular both with the gentle and with the ruffians, because they are not envious of anyone. Whatever they do, they are all pleasing to everyone, and they are fully blessed by Lord Chaitanya. Thus, they are engaged in missionary activities meant to deliver all the conditioned souls in the material universe. I offer my respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who are very much enriched in understanding of Lord Chaitanya, and who are thus expert in narrating his transcendental qualities. They can purify all the conditioned souls from the reactions of their sinful activities by pouring upon them transcendental songs about Govinda. As such, they are very expert in increasing the limits of the ocean of transcendental bliss, and they are the saviors of the living entities from the devouring mouth of liberation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who kicked off all association of aristocracy as insignificant. In order to deliver the poor conditioned souls, they accepted loincloths, treating themselves as mendicants, but they are always merged in the ecstatic ocean of the gopis' love for Krishna and bathe always and repeatedly in the waves of that ocean. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who are always engaged in worshipping Radha and Krishna in the transcendental land of Vrindavan, where there are beautiful trees full of fruits and flowers, which have under their roots all valuable jewels. The Goswamis are perfectly competent to bestow upon the living entities the greatest boon of the goal of life. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who are engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord and bowing down in a scheduled measurement. In this way, they utilize their valuable lives, and in executing these devotional activities, they conquered over eating and sleeping, and were always meek and humble, and chanted by remembering the transcendental qualities of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who are sometimes on the bank of the Radhakunda lake or the shores of the Jamuna, and sometimes at Bamsi Bhat. There they appear just like madmen, in full ecstasy of love for Krishna, exhibiting different transcendental symptoms in their bodies, and they are always merged in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, who were chanting very loudly everywhere in Vrindavan, shouting, Queen of Vrindavan, Radharani, O Lalita, O son of Nanda Maharaj, where are you all now? Are you just on the hill of Govardhan, or are you under the trees on the banks of Jamuna? Where are you? These were their moods in executing Krishna consciousness. So, got a little time. So I was introduced to this song, I think it was like 1977. I was in the temple in Manhattan, 340 5th West there, West 340 55th 8 West. Well, I don't know. It was West Side, but it's 340 West 55th Street, 8th Avenue. Yeah, that's it. West 55th Street, 8th Avenue. And the Sankirtan leader was a devotee named Budara, and he took us. I remember there was 2 groups to the Sankirtan. There was devotees who were going to the transportation terminals, like the bus station, train station, and the airport. And then there was those of us who were going into the lots, to the parking lots. So, the fellows who were going to the transportation terminals, they just kind of, did their thing, left after the morning program. And we were back a little bit. We stayed, and left a little bit later. So before he had us go out, he'd take us into the temple room. Fisherman Smook, were you part of that group? Do you remember this, that Budara would take us into the temple room, and before we went out, we'd sit down in the temple room and we'd sing this song? Were you there? Okay, we did it. You might have been before that or after that, but yeah, Budara used to take us into the temple room and he'd say, okay, we're going to introduce you to this song. And we did it every day before we went out, and it was very powerful. And, but nothing special. I can't remember anything special in relation to the song that happened at that time. But then years later, not that many years later, like that was 1977, maybe like 3 or 4 years later, I got traded. I was sent to Australia. And I was in Australia, and it was the Prabhupada Marathon. And I was a Sankirtan devotee, but leading up to that, I was doing temple management. I was, vice president in charge of internal affairs is how they titled it. I was like a glorified temple commander. Anyway, so I wasn't kind of like in the fire of Sankirtan at that time, but Sankirtan Marathon was a serious thing back in those days. So there's no question of saying that I don't think I want to go out. You had to go out, and you're expected to perform. So I was sent out, and I had a partner, and we got to the place where we were supposed to distribute, and it was the first day, and I got out there, and we were going shop to shop, and I just wasn't feeling it, and the people were not responding. It was like I went, oh. I tried for about like 45 minutes, an hour, something, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be a disaster, So I didn't know so I went back to the car because I was feeling kind of like discouraged, and I went back to the car and I sat down in the car. And I was thinking, oh man, what am I going to do? This is the first day of the marathon. I'm supposed to do this for a whole month, and I'm expected to do something. There's no question of calling up and saying, hey, I don't know, I'm having a tough time. Can I come back? That was not an option. And I was going, oh man, what's going on? So anyway, I was in a lot of anxiety, and some of you Sankirtan devotees can relate to that. So I just didn't know really what to do, and I just looked. I was sitting in the car, and I looked around. I just saw there was a book on the dashboard, and I thought, okay, I'll read. I'll read a bit, try to get absorbed in Prabhupada's words here, and hopefully that'll help. So I picked up the book. It just so happened it was the Anshalila Volume 1. And so I didn't know what was in it. I couldn't, at that time, I just, okay. And I read the first page, second page, and then like within 5 minutes, because I came to text 3 and 4, and there was that purport, and that prayer by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and the purport, and I read it, and I thought, okay, here's a hope. What do I got? I'm going to try this. Let me try it. What do I got to lose? I didn't know the song at that time. I hadn't memorized it, although I was introduced to it 5 years earlier or so. But I thought, well, at least I know the refrain, Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shujiva Gopalago. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to go back out there, and that's going to be my mantra. That's my prayer. That's my mantra. I'm just going to chant that repeatedly and pray for the mercy of the 6 Goswamis. So I just, got back out there and got back into it and doing exactly that. And, I felt like optimistic that, okay, this could work. And sure enough, it worked. Everything changed, Of course, my enthusiasm was totally changed. But I don't think I think it was more than just a mental thing that I felt hopeful, and now I was feeling some like internal energy, some reciprocation from the internal energy that okay, I'm taking shelter here, and the people started taking, and that was my program for the rest of the marathon. I quickly learned the song, and then I just instead of just chanting that one line, I would chant the whole song. I would say the Sanskrit, and then repeat the Sanskrit, and then the English translation. The Sanskrit, the English translation. The Sanskrit, all day long. That was my meditation, just chanting the song and saying the translation, chanting the song and saying the translation. And each day I was doing bigger. and I wound up tying for first in the marathon, which, like, you know, was like, so I went from like hopeless, you know, to that. So that was a powerful experience for me, and so because of that, I try to, although Maya is so powerful, but I try to kind of, as much as possible, stay, you know, in contact with this song. When I go out on Sankirtan, I have this with me, and I have it on the table. I work, you know, have a book table, and I'm, you know, constantly trying to, as much as possible, just, you know, remember the six Goswamis and pray for their mercy. So it's practical. I mean, at least in my experience, it really, this is something that really works. And I've had, you know, that was perhaps the most biggest experience I had with it, but there's been, you know, repeated experience of the, you know, the potency and the you know, the effectiveness of just taking shelter of the six Goswamis, praying for the mercy, and you know, experiencing something really good happen as a result. So I'll stop there. 127. Yeah.
Could you share with us that the question that you asked to Srila Prabhupada and the answer that he gave to you in New York?
Oh, the one question. Yeah, I've had one teeny little association with Prabhupada, but I did have one little thing. Prabhupada in 1973, late 1973, he was traveling from L.A. going to London, and he did a stopover at the Henry Street Temple. The temple's in Henry Street in Brooklyn at that time. And so they told us to come back, you know, early from Sankirtan, or because Prabhupada was going to give Bhagavad Gita class. So I think it was like a Wednesday afternoon, something like that. So Prabhupada gave the class, and at the end of the class, Prabhupada asked, are there any questions? Prabhupada, by the way, I got to do this properly, do the whole dramatic thing. So Prabhupada was sitting on the Vyasasana, and he gave the class, and he was just, well, that won't work. He was just sitting, he was sitting back. That's all right, you'll just describe it. So when he finished the class, he just leaned back on the bolsters, you know, they had the cushions there on it, and he was just very relaxed, and, you know, just, are there any questions? And, you know, there was like 1, 2, maybe 3 questions, devotees asked questions. And then Prabhupada, you know, same thing, very relaxed. Are there any more questions? And nobody raised a hand. And then Prabhupada asked again, a second time, he said, are there any more questions? And I thought to myself, I was uninitiated at that time. I'd been in the temple maybe 6 months at that point. So I thought to myself, well, okay, come on, somebody, ask a question. It's not my place. I didn't have a question. It was not my place to ask a question anyway, just being a relatively new devotee. You know, there were devotees there who had been there 2, 3, 4, 5 years kind of thing. So, so come on, somebody ask a question. And nobody raised a hand. And then Prabhupada asked the third time. He said, are there any more questions? I can't remember a time when because I listen to lectures all the time, when Prabhupada asked like 3 times, like, are there any more questions? And I don't know what was going on. Well, in my head, I was thinking, come on, what's wrong with you devotees? You know, somebody should ask a question. And I didn't have a question. I was feeling, like, this is weird, it might sound funny, but I was feeling uncomfortable for Srila Prabhupada. I was feeling like, Prabhupada wants to keep talking. Why aren't you, you know, you're his established devotees, you're not asking a question. So I just raised my hand. And they called on me. I just had to think fast. So I said, well, Srila Prabhupada, could you say something about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya? And Prabhupada looked over at Shrudakirti, was his secretary servant at the time. So he looked over at him. You know, he's about where these cameras are, and he looked like that. Made a face like, you know, I couldn't hear it, but he made a face like, what did he say? I guess I didn't speak up loudly and clearly enough. So what did he say? So Shrudakirti came up to him, and he kind of get right up next to his ear there, and he said something. And I don't know what he said, and he doesn't remember. I spoke to him years later and asked him, hey, you know, you remember that incident? What? He forgot, yeah. He couldn't remember. So he didn't remember. So anyway, after he kind of said something to Prabhupada, after he said it, Prabhupada sat up very straight, you know, just totally changed. He was, as I said, he was just really relaxed on the Vyasa. He sat up very straight, and he went, Padam Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So he said, so continue doing Sankirtan, and you'll be victorious. And I just went, I didn't know if I got chastised or what happened. I felt totally like bewildered, you know, upon hearing that. But then, and that was it. He didn't ask for any more questions after that. That was the end of the class. And then a devotee came up to me. I think his name was Padmanabha. I think he's still around. He might live in Alachua. And he said, oh, congratulations, Bhakta Jeff. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you just got a personal instruction from Srila Prabhupada. I said, oh, okay. So that was the one question. My one little association with Srila Prabhupada, aside from when I got second initiation, and it's too embarrassing to tell that story. So I got chastised. I'll tell you privately, I got chastised. But anyway, so that was that. And you know, it has played a significant role in my life, because a lot of times when I've been at a point where I had to decide, well, should I do this or should I do that? And I have to be honest with you, I've remembered that incident and thought, well, Prabhupada did say, continue doing Sankirtan and you'll be victorious. And so I just go, I opt with continue doing Sankirtan, and hopefully one day I'll be victorious. Whatever that exactly means. Thank you. Your mercy, your kindness. So that's all I have to say. If anybody has any reflection or anything like that, otherwise I'll stop there. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Prabhu, back there.
We'll just give you the mic.
Hang on, they're going to bring a mic back there to you. Somebody could have this one, by the way, as well. I've got plenty more at home. There's plenty more where this came from, so you can have it.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Is it working? Yeah. Okay, it's just a little comment. We know that in the beginnings of Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada has chosen to give the second stanza of these prayers. Nana, Shastra, Vicharada, Naika, Nipuna, Sadharma, Samtapiko. And in his Nectar Devotion, which is a summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So why he chose this particular stanza, I'm not really clear on. Who knows? Hare Krishna, that's all.
Yeah, right. We used to say that. We used to have Nectar Devotion class before Bhagavad Gita class when I first joined. That was like a standard thing. We chant that verse that you were referring to, and then somebody would read from the Nectar Devotion for like 15 minutes or so, and then they'd give the Bhagavad Gita class. So I don't know why he chose that one either, but of course it's, pretty, if you think about the translation, it's obviously pretty important and kind of sums up our whole movement, or Prabhupada's, movement. Okay, so thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I tried. Believe me, I tried. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. One of the airport. I had just got my hands on a copy yesterday, and I've been looking for it for years.
Take a picture with your phone. Is that what you can hang on to? Take a picture with your phone. And then, if somebody can make it, that'd be great. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, sounds like a